side jobs, moonlighting, pitfalls, hazards, and liabilities, all on this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast.
Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek Podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to the daily edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez, here every day discussing all things pests. Hey, today we're going to be discussing about side jobs, moonlighting by employees, pitfalls, hazards, and liabilities, what an employee needs to know, and what you need to know as an employer. Most of you that are listening to me already have experience with this. You saw it when the companies that you worked for. You know that employees, a lot of people saying, hey, listen, I don't want employees because they're going to steal from you. They're going to steal your clients. They're going to start moonlighting. They don't want to deal with that problem. And it is a huge problem in our industry. And it's a huge problem in any trade industry where people have access to equipment, knowledge, tools, and then they decide that they want to basically start doing side work because they don't feel they're being paid enough and they need to, get a part-time job basically on, their employer. So the employer's putting the bill. And this is, from a moral, ethical, legal perspective, it's just totally wrong. If you're doing this, guess what? You're wrong. And there's many reasons why people do this. But before that, I want to remind everybody to join in on the conversation. Join us. Join the society. PestGeekPodcast.com. Go to our group on Facebook, Pest Geek Podcast Listeners. All 4 words, Pest Geek Podcast Listeners. And you should be able to find us on Facebook. That group, join the group and join the conversation. Talk about what we're talking about here, how we can do this better, how we can help more people around the world do what we do better. And and also YouTube, we got a YouTube channel. We got some really neat interviews coming up with really neat people. So stay tuned for that. But back to my subject here of moonlighting and that people are doing. I was just at a supplier that I buy regularly. And there was a gentleman there, and he started discussing, saw my van and says, oh, you do natural pest control. What do you use? What product are you using for natural? It's like, it's not a product, man. I get so irritated every time I hear that. What product are you using? Like, I'm going to solve an industry problem, all the industry's issues with one problem because I do eco-friendly pest control. And he asked me this, and I said, well, it's a whole process. It's IPM, it's this and that. And he says, well, if you ever need a guy to do some work for you, give me a call. Here's my card. And, I work for this company, but I also do side jobs on the weekend. And I'm thinking, has this guy not read chapter 482? It's plain and simple in chapter 482. This is why I tell my employees and everyone, you got to read chapter 482. You got to sign off on it because all the laws of everything you're going to possibly break is in there. And it's plain and simple. It says moonlighting by pest control identification card holders, i.e. employees, is prohibited by law. So he doesn't know who I am. He has no idea, and he just blatantly tells me that he does side jobs. He has his own clientele that he does on the weekends. So he's got a take-home truck, and on the weekends, he does it. Well, he does it in his own vehicle. He doesn't use the company truck. That's even worse. Because according to chapter 482, any vehicle transporting chemical in the state must be permanently signed. Has to have permanent signage. So he's still breaking the law. He's taking product that his manager, company, paid for, and he's using it, stealing from the company. Third, he's exposing the company to liability because he's an ID card holder. If something happens, who do you think the customer that hired him is going to go after? They're going to go after everybody. Their lawyers are going to go after everybody. And you open up yourself to the liability. And you need to make it perfectly clear to your employees that if you're caught moonlighting, I mean, in the state of Florida, personally, if I catch one of my people moonlighting, I'm letting them know right off the get-go, you moonlight, and I find out about it, and guess what? I'll turn you in, personally, because you're putting everybody at risk. Second of all, your state requires that you make a record of the product that was applied, when, where, and how it was applied, and in some cases, what pest. If you're not in a label state, you're not in a site state, that we're a label state, the pest doesn't have to be present, but the site does, and we got to record how much we use. How are you recording that? On your own black book? So you're breaking the law. So if the customer isn't recorded and something happens, who's left holding, whose liability is it anyway? That's the biggest problem that we have, that people just don't get it in our industry. You're driving a company truck, not on company time, and you get injured in an accident. Whose liability is it? Because you're riding in a vehicle that belongs to the company, yet you're not on company time. What happens to your workman's comp? Will workman's comp pay if you're doing that? And then you want to go and sue your employer on top of that for workman's comp when you weren't supposed to be there in the first place. This is about what I talk about, having protocols, policies, and procedures that are very stringent, because the liability is there. Every time that vehicle is on the road, every time your employee is touching something, every time your employee is on somebody's property, there's a liability. So he gets into a car accident. You have a problem with the chemical. He's not carrying his MSDS that he's transporting that chemical. There's a fire. And now he's not saying anything about, the 2 gallons he has in the back of his truck or the back of his car. And we got a big, huge problem on our hands. Yet, if you go online, nobody's talking about this. Yet it's a real problem in our industry. See, the industry only cares about one thing, marketing. Marketing is awesome. It sells stuff. But go online. See if you find any of the publications in the last 10 years talking about this. You can find something on it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Yet it's a huge problem in our industry. I think that the states really need to pass laws that say, hey, if your employee is doing side jobs illegally, the state is going to step in and prosecute. I guarantee you that'll shut that down, because it is a huge problem for us. And you don't understand that you're putting my family's welfare, my children's food, my business that I worked for, everything I ever worked for. You have nothing invested in this company, but you want to come in because you feel like it, that you're not getting paid enough, and you can make $250 in 1 hour, because that's what we charge for, initial jobs, and greed sets in. Normally, it's a greed problem. Normally, it's a problem with the employee's character. And this is why I won't hire people from the industry, because I see this all the time. People say, why don't you hire from I don't want these inherent issues. You know what I look for? Military people, police officers, people who can, they're either retired, they want to do something else, people that are students. We can work with a lot of people. But this is a huge problem. It's a huge problem here. I get asked. I get pulled over and says, "Do you work for the company or is this your company?" And I said, and normally I'll answer that, "No, I work for this company." Because I do. It's a corporation. I work for it. And say, "No, I'm just looking for, you don't do side work, do you?" I get asked that all the time by customers. "Hey, will you consider doing my pest control so I don't have to pay that full price? Because, come and do it on the side." I think you should make it a policy in your company that if your employee ever gets asked by one of your customers to do a side job, that he has to report it. And then the next thing I'm going to do is get on that phone with that client and say, "If you ever do that again, I will drop you as a client." Simple. And here's why. Our company does not do that. And we have loyal employees. If you treat your people right, you will have loyal employees. If you got the right employee to begin with. The problem is you got to have a loyal employee that understands loyalty. And that understands that, he's an employee. I mean, I know a lot of companies say, "You own that route. It's your route. It's your responsibility. Everything is thrown on them." But at the end of the day, they don't have any say how that route's run. So it's really not their route. I mean, come on. But you have to take ownership of your responsibilities. You've been entrusted with truck, chemical. You're a walking freaking laboratory, in case you didn't know it. You're a chemical warehouse, a rolling chemical warehouse. And these are the things that we need to deal with. See, if we were really, if in the National Pest Management Association and the local Pest Management Association said, "We're really serious about protecting you," the small owner, they would actually want to pass laws like this and say, "By the way, if your employee moonlights, you can turn them in." And U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Florida Department of Agriculture, will prosecute. The attorney, they will file a case and prosecute, and that would end this problem. But guess what? No, they don't. The law is there, but to try to get it enforced, ridiculous. You see, there's no reason if you get paid commission for selling and you get paid commission or production work, then go sell something. Go out on the weekend and sell for 25% commission because that's what you signed. That was the agreement. Don't feel that you need something more afterwards because that says a ton about your character. If you're struggling with that, you need to check your character because that's a serious problem. And the moment the employee does it, you should fire him, period. We have it in our employee manual that they sign this, understanding that it's against the law if they do this. And they will get fired on the spot, period. I don't care if you've been with me for 20 years. Now, you want to make it part of their fringe benefit that they can do their mother's house, that they can do the in-laws' house, that they can do their church? I encourage it. I encourage our people to say, "Hey, if you want to, if you got a church and you want to serve them and, you want to help them out, go do it. Put it on your route. Put them as a customer. 0. Don't bill them for it, but it has to be recorded. If you're doing your mother-in-law's house, you get 3, give them like 3 accounts a year that they can do for free. You mean I'm going to pay for them to do it? Yeah, do it. It's called a fringe benefit. It's called part of, the benefit of working for this company. You're competing for employees and you want employee loyalty, but you don't want to give up absolutely anything more than you have to other than that 20% production. If you can't afford 3 properties a year, then you allow them to have that discretion to use that as a fringe benefit. Why not? You're struggling to get quality people anyway. I mean, it's not like people are dying, knocking down our door to work for us. This is the problem we're having. So, this needs to be addressed. This needs to be seriously talked about. It's a serious problem. It's chronic. with people doing side jobs in moonlighting. And it's exposing everyone to liability. And they don't understand it. Most people do not understand this. So guys, I hope that this podcast has been helpful. And I will see you again tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.